Okay. So this video I'm recording at 4:20 in the morning, and I just decided that I should make a quick guide on how to do the fastest route for night flights. I know some people struggle with it when they're first trying to learn it, or some people still don't do it in their runs when they've been running for a while. And I don't think it's too hard of a like flight route to adapt. And because night flight is the most like easy to practice flight in the game because of the fact that there's no cycles to think about, I think there's really no reason why people shouldn't at least try to learn it. So it's going to be like two parts basically, where one part is I just show the route and then talk about the one big difference, which is at the end of the flight. And then the other half is going to be talking about how to start lowering your time, how to get like a 103 night flight or 102, and like how in this video that I'm showing I got a 101.4 night flight in a run, which is a tied third on the IO leaderboards. So yeah, that's what this video is gonna be. So I'm just gonna skip to when the level starts. This is from an NBS run. Um, just a random NBS run that I did when I was doing an NBS run every day, or two NBS runs every day. So the start of the flight, I mean, is very basic. It's just exactly what you would do in a normal route, but I'm just gonna let it play out in case you're unfamiliar with it. Get the ring, then you do this order essentially. I'm going to talk a bit more about like the movement specifically when I'm talking about like improving the flight time itself that you get, like whether you're trying to get like a 102 or whatever it may be. But yeah, I mean, there's the order that you want to do. Um, and it's coming up to where it's gonna differ from the traditional route. Um, so I'll pause it now because this is where it starts to be different. So typically in a run of like when you're first learning the categories, like a Spyro 1 category that includes night flight, whether it's MBS or 120, and you learn like the easier version of like a fast night flight route, um, you'll like start flying over to to that like lamp. Is it is it meant to be like a lighthouse or a lamp? I actually have no idea. I've always called it like a lamp, but it's not really. Okay. Anyways, you start going over there and then you would go to like the very last archway, and then you would turn it back around and do the cleanup. Um, uh, is that even the route? I actually don't remember. It's been a while since I've done it. No, no, no. You would go down to the arch, and then you'd go through all the arches, and then you turn around and do all the lamps or lighthouses. Um, but this is different because what we do here is we're gonna go to this archway, but instead of going to the next one, we're gonna fly up and flame this here. Gonna flame this here first, and then we're gonna turn with a little charge. We're gonna turn and start going down into. I'm just gonna call it a light. We're just gonna call them lights. We're gonna go down to this light down here, and this is typically the part where people struggle at, where right after you flame this one, you need to flame, and then you need to turn and put yourself in position to go through this archway. Um, and this is very easy to mess up because you can bonk on the crystal that's right here. You can bonk, or you can get stuck right on the archway here and the little house thing. You can get too close to the water if you don't do the turn quick enough, and then you might get pulled in and fail the flight. Or you can bonk on this crystal here, even if you make it past. So this is typically, I think, where people struggle, and I'm gonna talk mostly about this section that we kind of just went through in terms of like giving advice. But quickly, if you once you make it through, you want to go to this archway where you would then turn to the left, flame, another pivot, and then you do this archway whichever way you want. You could do what I do, which is go on the right side of it and then charge, or you can charge and pivot out, then go to this one, or you can fly straight through it like I do here, like just about like graze it. Um, or you can even fly around the left side of it and then do like a big turning, like swing it into this direction. But this is the fastest way, I believe, and that's like the general route. So I'll play it in full. All right. So it's pretty quick, but um, I want to talk about a few little things that should make it a bit easier. So the first thing to note is every this applies for all flights, but it's important to note here because this is something that you do not want to do at all. Every time you do a turn, um, like a pivot in a flight, you always want to be charging to stop your glide. You never want to like have like triangle or Y or whatever it is on a keyboard to like cancel your glide because if you cancel your glide in a flight, there's like a second and a half maybe where you just cannot reinitiate your flight or your glide. So that puts you in a pretty bad position every time that you're trying to pivot. So you always want to charge for your pivots the way that I do here. A very like quick tap of charge. You can see the charge animation. And then you let go as you start to turn, and then you restart your flight. So that's going to be an important thing to take note of here because people approach this section in different ways, like how much they like start turning before they charge. Some people just flame and like charge immediately to start turning around to go to this arch, but um if you look at how I do it, it's pretty it makes it very lenient, I think. I think this is the best way that I've found to give yourself a good angle. And that's if I play this through at a slower speed, I don't know if this is slow enough, but you can see, hold on, I should go back a little bit more. Um, you can see that as I flame, I'm not flaming it like head on. I'm flaming it like as I'm turning into the right. Um, and what that means is that, or what that lets me do is as I connect my flame, I'm turning to the right, which will allow me to more easily like charge down and pivot to get at like a good angle. Because what will happen is if you are in um if you're in this position basically and you flame right on this edge and then you charge and you try and pivot to the right, what will most likely happen is if you're not used to doing this is you'll be too close to the water and you'll just either go straight into the water or you wouldn't have turned far enough um because you're avoiding trying to go into the water and then you'll get stuck on the arch and that's just not what you want. So my advice for this here is do what I do, which is turn as you flame. So you flame as you're like fading away from it, and then what that allows you to do is hold charge like pretty early around this crystal. Like, as you can see, like I haven't like really made it past this crystal as I'm turning to the right, really cutting this angle tight here, but it gives me a lot of space and a lot of time in the air to 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 turn and face the archway basically. And as you can see here, I'm in a pretty good position. Now the other thing that I did there is something that's incredibly important to know about flights, and that is that um when you're when you do a flight normally, if all you do is use your left stick to turn Spyro like if you're trying to like make a turn to the left or to the right, if all you do is you use your left stick, then you're like limiting how sharply you can turn in the air. So what that means is that every time in this section where I'm turning to the left or the right, I am holding my left stick and my right stick because for whatever reason, I don't know the actual reason, but for whatever reason in this game, if you turn your camera whilst in a flight, whilst you're flying, if you turn your camera as you turn your left stick, if you're holding them in the same direction, Spyro will turn more sharply. And although it is good to pivot, to turn and um, even though most times it's good to pivot instead of just gliding, there are times where you don't have the space, or you don't, or you're too close to water, so you can't pivot. So in those moments, you will want to hold left stick and right stick to turn. So I'll try and it's kind of hard to explain, but here, as I'm turning to the right, I'm holding both right on my left stick and right on my right stick. And then I charge to pivot, and then here I hold to the right on my left stick to create a bit more of an like to kind of like open up the angle basically, so that I'm not just like flying straight into the arch. I'm like turning a bit to the right that have more space, so that in this moment here, I can turn to the left whilst holding left on my left stick and on my right stick. Um, if that sounds confusing, then all you need to know is every time you're gliding and you're turning to the left or the right is basically always going to be best to hold both the left stick and the right stick in the direction that you want to turn. Um, so every time I do a turn here where I'm not pivoting, just assume that I'm holding the left stick and the right stick in the same direction because that lets you turn more sharply. But um, that's the best advice I can give for clearing that section, other than just keep practicing it until you become comfortable with doing the turn around the crystal and then through the archway. Um, the other thing I should mention that applies to stuff with the camera is going up. So this is kind of similar to like the animation I get when you do like the high cap skip and loot, but this is it's different because you're actually in a flight and not in a level with flying. Um, but if you if you kind of notice here, my camera like is like all the way down. And if you go into a flight and you just hold down on the left stick, Spyro will go up, but the camera kind of stays with him. You can make Spyro go up more sharply, the same way that you can make Spyro turn left or right more sharply by holding the right stick in that direction. You can make Spyro go up and down more steeply by holding up and down on the right stick. So in this situation, I'm holding um down to bring Spyro up, and I'm holding down on the right stick at the same time, and that makes Spyro go up more steeply, and that makes it easier basically to just clear this here more quickly so that I can line myself up with the left side of this light. But you can see here, in this moment, I'm holding right on the left stick and right stick. In this moment, I turn a little bit to the right, and then here I'm holding left and right on the left stick and right stick. Oh no, I'm holding left on both the left stick and right stick, not holding left and right. I'm holding left on the left stick and right stick. And then here, as you can see for this turn, I'm holding left on the left stick and the right stick. I flame, and then as I turn here, look, in this moment here, I'm holding right on my left stick and right stick. And yeah, I think just that section should give you a rough idea of how important it is to hold both your movement and your camera in the same direction during flight when you're not pivoting. So that's kind of that for that section. That covers a lot of it. I'll play it again and just like talk through it, but the main thing is that if you want to practice this, what you can do is you can load up Night Flight. You don't need to go through the whole level. You can bring yourself to where that to where this chest is up here, and you can practice just doing this section. That's what I did. And try and just do as many times in a row as you can. Um, like if you I find that the best way to practice something new is to set a goal for yourself of like, okay, let me just get this one time. And then when you get it for the first time, you're like, okay, let me try and get this 3 times in a row, and then you keep doing it over and over again until you can do it 3 times in a row. And that will help build up good muscle memory. It's one thing to just practice something and then you get it once and you're like, okay, I did it. And then like maybe like the next day, like, okay, let me try and get that again. But if you do that, then you're not letting yourself build up muscle memory more easily. You're kind of like hindering your practice, I think. The best way, in my opinion, and this is how I always did it with flights, is try and do it. Try and replicate sections multiple times in a row and find what works best for you. Clearly, what works best for me is a lot of turning with the left and right stick, some pivots and um, trying to avoid staying close to the water. But maybe something different might work for you. Maybe you'll want to watch how Cat does it in his runs, or how Groxy was doing it. How either of them were doing it in their runs. They also got 101s a lot in their runs, or 102s. You can watch how Vivi does it in the IL world record. That was done on keyboard and mouse, but the general idea still applies, even if the turns are going to be, not possible on controller. Um, like you can see here, like I'm staying like pretty close to the top of this light. If I was any lower, if I was a bit lower, then I'd be a bit more at risk of like falling into the water. But you can be more risky with that if you get more comfortable doing that, then you don't need to follow exactly what I'm saying. But I'm gonna give general advice now on the flight of just things that will help you push your time down from, okay, I can do this 3 times in a row, 5 times in a row in practice, and I'm getting, times I'm happy with, 105s, 104s, which is still faster than like basically anything that you can do with the safer route. But how do I start getting consistent 104s, or get how do I start pushing for a 103 or even a 102, or fuck it, how do I get to like 101 or sub 101 territory? Although I don't think many people are consistent with sub 101s. I mean, it is possible if people just kept doing this, eventually they would get sub 101. You don't need keyboard and mouse for it, I don't think. But I'm going to give general advice on things that I look for, things to look out in your flights, your night flights. Uh, and you can compare it to this advice, or you can compare it to with the world record IL, and see what you can improve. So let's just go through this. The first thing I'm gonna say is from the very start you have like two options in how you can approach this very first ring. You obviously want to hit at the bottom of the ring, but you can either charge down like I do here, or you can glide down to it by holding the up on the left stick and right stick to go down a bit sharper. But I like to charge down. I don't know if it's actually faster or slower, anything. I think it's kind of just personal preference because it's right at the start. But yeah, you want to hit these rings at the as low on them as you can. But uh, if you pay attention to like which side of the ring I'm hitting it on, you'll see that I start a bit to the right on this first one, a bit to the right from the very center. And then as I go down, I'm sticking to the right, like the bottom right of these rings. Because if you stick to the bottom right, once you hit this ring, you'll be lined up with the bottom left of this ring. And what sticking to the left of that ring does is it puts you in a better position to turn more sharply out of this little like cave section. I can see I'm on the left, and now I'm like as far left in the like exiting the cave section as I can be whilst hitting this ring, and I'm still at the bottom. And you might question here like, oh, what are you doing? Like, why are you going to the left? You need to turn to the right. You probably like you really don't need to turn this far to the left like I'm doing here. The only reason I do this because I play it safe during runs, but the idea is that I go to the left so that I can give a wide turn into this ring because I'm trying to hit this ring on the very edge of like my hitbox. Excuse me. That like because if I hit it on the very edge, that means I'm turning as sharply as I could, and therefore I'm, cutting the corner essentially and I'm saving time. But if you're not comfortable with doing that, you can just like stick to the right and turn as much to the right as you can. If you do that and you play it safe, then you'll probably want to go around the left side of this light. And although it is slower than going around the right side, I promise you, it is not that big of a difference. I was getting consistent 102s before I ever switched to going around the right side here. So don't think that the reason you're, not making any progress is because you're going to the left and not the right. Like, get comfortable. This is like a minuscule time save over the course of this flight. Um, but that is the reason why I do it this way, is because I'm trying to hit it on the very edge of my edge of the like wing hitbox. Uh, not the edge of like my wing, but like I'm trying to like just barely get into the ring as I'm turning to the right because I want to get on the right side of this light. And the reason why I want to get on the right side of this light is because I want to be on the right side of this light when I reach it so that I can then pivot to the right. And you can notice here as well, this is another moment where I decide to charge down to get closer to the water rather than gliding down to get closer to the water. If you're not aware, when you're closer to the water in a flight, you go faster. So that's why you want to be close to the water whenever you can, but you don't want to force yourself to go down to the water every time because you want to keep like you want to take good lines in your flight. So you're trying to basically find a balance between being as low down as possible so that you can go fast, whilst also not like veering off course or forcing yourself to do it too much so that you're not like actually losing time by trying to build up speed. But in this case, I go close enough down to the water that I can gain some speed, and then I'm going to bring myself back up by holding the left and right stick down just a little bit so that I'm basically facing the very bottom. The thing to keep in mind with these lights is that the hitbox isn't just like the the light part. The very bottom here is also a part of this hitbox, and if your flame connects to the bottom of it, it will light up. So as you can see here, I flamed the very bottom of it, like the corner of the bottom, and it lights up. So you can play around with that. The more and more you play around with it, like the more and more like you few attempts, like you'll get more and more used to it. It might be a little finicky at first, but you'll get used to it, and it's always best to be on the safe side if you're not used to it yet. But trust me, the more you practice, the better you'll understand it. Um, but yeah, we do a quick pivot here to the right. You want to pivot as quickly as possible because you want to basically be lined up with the left side here. And again, you want to be as kind of like low down, kind of, but not too low down on this light because if you're like here, if you look at where I flamed it, which is like basically on the lining, like there, if you were down here and you flamed it, it would connect, but you would be like all the way down here. And then you would kind of waste time by not having a good angle because you would then need to like fly back up to reach this arc. Whereas here you have a bit of a better angle and you only need to turn to the left. You don't need to turn and go up, you know? So that's kind of an example of like getting closer, going lower down is good for speed, but when you're trying to take an angle to go to the next point, it's not always good to be low down. You could hinder yourself. That's actually a good example. But yeah, a quick pivot and then some more holding left and right, turn left. Um, uh, I do have to build myself to go up a bit, but it's not bad at all, and it's like a very minor difference, um, compared to if I was slightly up on that light. So I'd say any lower, claiming it from any lower than where I did would have been a bit of an inconvenience. But what we're gonna do here is this is when you're really trying to push your time save, is you want to try and fly into this arc on the very left side of it, because when you fly in from the very left side of it and you start to go down, that puts you in a better position to be on the left side of the next arch. So if I just play this section in full, I'm sticking to the left side here. As you can see, when I come down, the more left you stick on that arch, the more left you'll be on this arch, which is good because you want to hit all of these upcoming arches on the very left. Because it's not just about making it past these arches, it's about turning around this rock, and you want to be as, just like any other turn, any other pivot, like, any other turn in this game when you're trying to make it around an obstacle, you want to turn as tightly around it, to cut corner as best as you can. So I could have stuck more to the left here, but this one is the least important arch to be on the left of, compared to all the other ones, but it does kind of like set you up more nicely if you are more to the left here, um, more than I was for sure. And as you can see, we're quite close to the water. You don't need to be that much lower than I am here. I mean, you can obviously get close to the water, but as you can see, like these arches aren't just directly on the water. Like there is a slight platform, and so it can be a bit annoying to like adjust your height. It's much easier in a run. If I was like doing ILs, I'd probably try and force myself to be close to the water. But since this was in a run, I was just trying to get through it, and lucked out that this happened to be my best night flight that I've ever done in a run or practice. But as you can see, I'm sticking to the left. When I'm turning again, I can't stress enough how important it is in flight when you're not pivoting, when you're just turning, to turn left or right using both the left stick and the right stick. If there's one single thing that you take away from this video, almost half an hour into recording this, there's one single thing that you take away from this video is that is so crucial. When you're doing a turn that does not require you to pivot, you turn with your left and right stick. And as a general rule, any turn that is less than like 45 degrees, you don't need to pivot for that. And any turn that is past 45 degrees, then you're gonna want to pivot for that. So that's the idea. But even if you're not thinking of general rules, if you just follow the route, you'll see where people pivot and where people turn. And when you see people turn, hold left and right, both sticks, both left and right sticks. It's so important. It allows you to turn more sharply. It allows you to cut corners much smoother and much better, and you save time doing it. If you do, if you took two identical runs through Night Flight, but one did all their turns only using the left stick, and then you took that exact flight and you just the only thing you adjusted was did the turns using left stick and right stick, I promise you the one with the left stick and right stick would save so much more time over something that requires minimal effort to implement. You're not you're not like changing your route at all. You're just turning more sharply. And it not only does it save time, but it feels nicer, it feels smoother, and when you're playing and your movement feels smooth, you start to play better, and you start to feel better. So yeah. That's my biggest piece of advice for general flights in this game. Right. Next arch, as you can see, I'm holding down and on my left stick, and what I'm doing here, you can see I'm not just going straight up. I'm like, let me get it. I'm like jittering up. If I place at half speed, you see that I'm not going straight up, I'm like jittering up. You see that? You see how my movement isn't smooth there? I'm like jittering up. What I'm doing there is I'm holding directly down on my left stick, but I'm like flicking down on my right stick. And what that lets me do is it allows me to adjust how much height I'm gaining so that I gain the minimal amount of height needed to clear this platform because the higher up you go here, the more time you're wasting. Because right after this, we're going to go straight down again. And as you can see, I'm not just going straight down. I'm holding down to the left. And the reason why, of course, is because I'm trying to make it around this like left corner, basically. This left wall rock, make it to this light. And I want to hit it on the very right side of it. And as you can see, this turn, it's to the right. I'm holding left and right stick, and I flame very low down on it because I want to stay close to the water. I don't need to pivot on this because this is not a greater than 45-degree turn. This is pretty straight ahead. So I just have to turn sharply. I jitter my way up, holding down on the left stick and clicking down on the right stick. After flaming, oh, I didn't mean to hit full screen. I couldn't get this like I can get this like hit properly on full screen in OBS, so this is like the best I could come up with, but it's fine. But as you can see, like straight after, oh, straight after flaming, I'm already turning down and to the right. As soon you want to basically, when you're really optimizing this this flight, you want to spend as little time possible flying in like a straight line. Night flight doesn't have many points where you want to like just be flying in a straight line. And this is a good example where I'm like lifting Spyro's head up and like as as much as I need to hit this chest. And once I've hit it, I'm instantly going straight down in the direction of the next chest because it's lower down. The way that these chests are positioned in this section are such that they're never like level with each other. So you're always either going up or down. So in this section, you don't want to be flying straight ahead. You want to be flying down or up for the most part, um, unless you're like close to the water and you're just flying straight because there's like nothing to do aside from being close to the water to go fast. But yeah, of flamed and instantly going down into the right. I flame here, and as soon as I flame, again, I'm staying to the left. This is another thing to mention, of course, is that I'm sticking to the right of this light, and then I'm sticking to the right of this platform, right? Flame, and then I'm sticking to the left of this platform. So that as much, how do I phrase this? I'm trying to, optimally, you're trying to hit it with the very corners of your flame. In a run, obviously, you'd play it safer, but you're trying to get used to trying to hit each chest with the very corners of your flames that you can turn to the next point more sharply. That's why you want to stay on the side of these platforms. So then I hit the chest, and then this one, I'm flying a bit more head on. As you can see, I'm not really on the left, but optimally, you'd be about here, because then the very right side of your flame would be connecting. But I'm playing it safe because it's a run. But optimally, you'd be a bit more to the left here. So this is something I could have done much better in this run. I just realized is this 720p? That's crazy. Ah. Anyways, this is yeah, this is a small optimization, but I could have been more to the left here, and that would have allowed me to turn more sharply. But as you can see, I'm turning pretty sharp here, and what I'm doing in this situation is I'm not just turning to the left now. Even though this isn't a big pivot, what I'm doing is I'm charging so that I can get further closer to the water more quickly. I could have probably just dropped straight down, holding up on the left stick and right stick, but I find it that if you have an extended period of time where you're going to be close to the water, it's better to charge to get closer to the water than it is to just continue flying, because you're going to build up the speed being closer to the water than if you were just flying closer to the water or to get closer to the water. But that's why I like to charge down at this point. Um, and it's a pretty good turn there. I mean, what can I say? Yeah, I'm really trying to get close to the water, and again, I'm gonna jitter my way up, trying to just trying to get like as much height as I need and not do anything past that, and then instantly charge down to reach the next one. This turn here is using both left stick and right stick, going to the left, sticking as close to the water as I can, and then I'm trying to fly up as late as I can, whilst also not having it be a really steep um increase. Because if you could get closer to these crystals here and then hold down on your left stick and right stick and you would reach the chest, but you would be so close to the platform that you'd actually be like losing time because of how steep of an increase you would need, which is why I find it better to like flicked flick my way up, like the little like jitter increase in height. I find that to be better because you still stay pretty close to the water whilst getting those small increases in height to put yourself level with the platform, and I just find that to be best. And then we're instantly going to go down. And as you can see in this situation, in this position here, instead of charging down to the water, I'm just gliding down. And you may think, well, what's the difference between this and the other tests that you were going to where you charge down to get close to the water? Well, this platform here is much closer to the water than the other ones, and so it is better to continue flying in the direction of the next chest and get closer to the water that way whilst flying forwards than it would be to stop your flight and just charge down, because then you would be sacrificing time spent flying towards the next point. So that's the thought process behind that. But all you really need to know is that I continue my glide here. And I'm holding left stick only here, maybe? I don't really think I hold right stick too much when I'm going down. Maybe I do. I don't really pay attention sometimes. Sometimes I autopilot these, but um, if I wasn't holding left stick and right stick here, then I should have been. No, I was holding left stick and right stick. You can tell from the camera. But we're going to stick to the left on that. We're going to stick to the left here. And then we're going to do this section. And here's some fun little optimizations. So I used to think that you should stay on the right of this arch to get closer to this lantern or this light. But I found that a lot of runners stick to the left. And I wondered why people stick to the left. Why would you stick to the left? Sticking to the right's closer. The reason you stick to the left of this arch is because it puts you actually at a better angle to be on the right side of this light back here. So if I go up, I'm closer to the right. If I stuck to the right of that arch, then I would have been closer to the center. Sticking a bit more to the left puts you further on the side of this light, even though it didn't look like that when I was first practicing this. But yeah, we're gonna flame on the left side, closer to the top. And the reason why I want to flame close to the top is because you're gonna have to pivot and you need to give yourself enough time in the air to be able to clear this rooftop, basically. But once we've cleared it, we want to fly down, and the height that you want with this one, I find, is like roughly the same height as the last light. Um, Although you can afford to be a bit lower if you're willing to play it closer to the water, which if you're practicing, then there's no reason not to practice seeing how close, like how low down you're comfortable going, or you feel like you're too close. So I'd mess around with that just to get comfortable. But when you're really trying to push your time, this section here is probably not the best place to try and squeeze time out of. It's best to just try and play it safe. Typically, I find that the best place to squeeze time out of in Night Flight is from the section with the chests, and then the very end, because you can do the arches and the chests with tighter turns, and you can do the ending section with tighter turns. This section like right after this with tighter turns, and the the tighter your turns are in Night Flight, the better the time you're gonna get typically. So that's something good to keep in mind. Um, yeah. So I'm just gonna put this at a slower speed, and just kind of talk through it a little bit because I used to struggle a lot with this, and I think a lot of people struggle a lot with this. And I've already talked about it a bit earlier, but it's important to stress how to like avoid bonking in this section or how to avoid going into the water. And my best advice is to some people, what they do is they flame here and they instantly pivot to the right. They instantly pivot and start turning to the right, and it puts them in a bit of an awkward position where they're more likely to bonk on this crystal. So what I like to do is I like to flame and then charge a bit forward and then let go of charge. And all that all that it does is that by not pivoting instantly and by charging a little bit, it allows me to make it further past this crystal so that I can make the turn. If you don't want to hold down charge because you're scared of going into the water, then you can just flame and keep flying a little bit past um the light and then turn and then do your pivot, basically. So if you look here, I flame, and as you can see, I don't pivot straight, I don't just do a quick pivot, I hold charge for the tiniest little bit longer, and, and whilst holding to the right, and that allows me to turn around past the crystal, and it puts me in a pretty good position to then turn into the arch. But again, if you're not comfortable, if you're not comfortable doing that, then you can flame and keep turning a bit more, keep flying and turning a bit more, and then pivot to get the extra little bit of your turn. But I think doing the charging way, where you basically just charge a little bit around this corner and then pull down. I think it's always gonna be better. So I'll play that. You can see it's the slightest amount of time that you hold the charge, like the slightest bit extra amount of time, but it does make a difference. And then optimally around this arch, you'll try and stick as far to the like left of it. I can see I'm really sticking around the left here. If you stay too much to the left, you'll get like you'll just hit this arch here and then you'll go down. But if you're the correct amount of left, then you'll just about make it in. And yeah, and that's what you want. And then you keep turning a bit left because you want to be on the left side of this archway. And then, as you can see, you don't want to turn. You don't want to start turning immediately. You don't want to start turning like here because if you start turning early, then you're gonna hit the debris from this archway. You're gonna hit the left debris, and that will cause you to stop flying because it's gonna pull you down to the platform. So what you want to do is you want to hit is you want to like kind of start turning left like kind of late. Like basically as you're touching art is when you start turning left because that lets you get past the debris mostly and it puts you in a position to go for this light and you want to be on the left side of this crystal. Obviously you want to be trying to hit the right side of this light. Um and you want to be kind of low down, but if you're like too low down then you're gonna hit this crystal maybe, or you're gonna like be a little bit stuck. You're gonna have to gain more height, and that can lose a bit of time. So if you pay attention to what I flame, kind of like in the middle a bit, and then if you look at where I end up, I'm pretty low down. Like this is pretty good amount of like low down. If I was any lower, it would. If I was lower than this, it would be okay. But it starts to get a bit finicky, or it can get a bit finicky. And if I was any higher, then I would have been like, oh, I could have gone a bit lower on that one. So I'd say aiming towards the middle of this light is a pretty good spot. Aiming towards the middle right is a pretty good spot, but you could aim a bit lower than the middle right, and I think you'd probably be okay. Again, it's another thing to mess around with. Do a few night flights, save the recording, look over them, be like, oh, I could have been lower on this. Oh, I could have probably been higher on this and been fine. Or I could have done this turn more sharply. All that stuff. Um, yeah, that's that. But I pivot. I kind of let myself drop a little bit more on these pivots. Um, it's not really intentional. It's just the fact that as I'm flaming, I'm turning tiny bit to the right because you need to do like a really sharp pivot. It's a big angle change that you're trying to do. And so naturally Spyro drops down quite a bit if you're trying to face directly towards where the arch is. And that leaves you a bit closer, which is why you don't want to, you know, flame so low there because you will just naturally drop lower than you were expecting on some of the other ones. And then yeah, the fastest way to do this end section is to glide into this arch, but barely touch it, and then start holding left and to the right. As you can see, I start holding left and right stick to the right here before I've even touched the arch. I'm turning to the right to go to the final light before I've even touched the arch. And I'm barely touching it when it breaks. And it's unfortunate that the debris here can kind of screw you over, but that's just kind of how it is. If you want to be safe and you don't want to get hit with the debris, but you still want a fast ending, then what you can do is you can fly a bit more to the left than I'm doing here and a bit higher up, and then you can fly into this and like pivot, like at the like you can pivot as you hit it and then turn to the right with your pivot, but holding left and to the right, left and right on the right, left and right, left and right sticks to the right. What I'm trying to say, it's 5 a.m. I'm so tired. I'm so sorry. Holding both left and right stick and turn to the right here is the fastest way to do it, even if it can be a little bit risky, even if you will miss it sometimes. This is the way to push your time down. This is probably one of the biggest, single biggest time saves you can force yourself to do once you're trying to push for a 101 or a 102. This is probably the thing that is going to be limiting you if you haven't implemented it. Uh, Not going around the left side and not pivoting here, but doing this approach is probably the last thing you're going to be implementing in this section once you're really trying to push your time down. And then you just want to flame kind of as low down here as possible because you want to be kind of low so that you're going faster, but you don't want to be too low because again, if you're too low, then you're going to need to gain too much height to reach the light. If you're on PC, then you will want to stick closer to the light so that you get the animation skip. But if you're doing ILs or if you're on console and all you care about is the IGT, then you just want to flame as early as you want to connect with the bottom of the light. I got the animation skip there. I don't think it would have made a difference if I flamed earlier and like if I flamed earlier here and didn't get the animation skip, like would it have even mattered towards my time if I flamed like a bit early? I don't think it would have. But yeah, that's that's all my night flight advice. I genuinely didn't think I would be talking for 15 minutes about night flight. I thought this was gonna be like a 10-minute, 15-minute thing. Um, but yeah, I didn't expect that. So my bad, I guess. But hey, this isn't just night flight advice. This was general flight advice. I just used my night flight as the best example because I genuinely do believe that night flight is the best flight for practice. The reason being that if you have a 120 save or just a save with all the flights available and you guidebook into the flight or you retry the flight, the cycles will not be consistent with what you'll be seeing in runs for all the other flights. Aside from Sunny Flight, I think, but Sunny Flight's only applicable to 120. What if you're doing NBS, you know? Then yeah, Crystal Flight, Wild Flight, and Icy Flight all are cycle dependent, and those cycles are not consistent between practicing by retrying the flight over and over again on a save and actually doing them in runs. And so I think for general flight mechanics, night flight is the best flight um, for practice. Uh, and it just so happens that it has a route that some people struggle with. And so why not talk about it and why not try to explain my thought process behind how I approach things in an extremely long form way that is unnecessarily long, I guess. That's why I do. That's why there's an 8-hour 120 tutorial and however long my movement guide is and however long the 12-hour guide was. I don't remember. Um, but yeah, I think that's all there is to it. Like and subscribe and let me know what kind of struggles you have with flights, I guess, because I will try and address them in a different video, a different hour-long video. No, probably just comment. I'll probably just comment, or you can reach out to me on Discord. I'll leave my Discord somewhere, or I'll leave a link to the Spyro Discord where people who are better at explaining things quickly can help. Um, I was considering doing different tutorials, like low-key. I thought about making one like the way my 121 is, where I just go for a run, but for NBS. But I kind of already did that with the house one, with the like analysis of houses run video. But that wasn't really a guide. That was mostly me talking about what he does so good. If I was actually to do a guide, it'd be a bit more informative rather than just, oh, he does this so good because he approaches it this way. Rather than like, you need to approach it this way because this is the best way to do it, but there's other ways kind of guide. Yeah, that is all there is to it. What is a good ending thing to show in the run? I don't think there is anything. So I'm gonna go here. This is the ending shot. There you go. Sorry for waffling for 56 minutes, but that's how I do it, baby. And hey, no one else fucking releases tutorials or guides or walkthroughs of ideas for this game, so I gotta be the one that does it, and now everyone has to hear me up. So yeah, that's all. I'm gonna sleep now. Good night.